Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Patriots Real Time Podcast. I'm your host, Theo Diesnas, and today we have a very special guest. Boston Herald's Andrew Callahan joins the show. Andrew, thank you for coming on.
You got it. Happy Monday.
Yes, very happy Monday. Today we will be diving deep into free agency and specifically a Patriots free agency podcast. And yeah, I just want to get started right away. Andrew, edge rusher. That is undeniably the Patriots' biggest need. You look at who they had this year. They had a banged up not a banged up Harold Landry, and then Callahan Chason, who is a free agent. They also had Elijah Ponder and Anthony Jennings there as depth pieces. But in this free agency market, who do you see as the best fit for the Patriots?
Yeah, I think they're fortunate, just like in the draft, that the strength of this free agent class kind of aligns with their needs. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't get outbid on everyone. And I know people start at the top. You got your Trey Hendricksons, you go to Jalen Phillips, then you go to, Odafe Owe. I look at that second tier based on conversations my guy Doug Kyde and I had at the combine. Someone like Boye Mafe has my attention, and it's partly because, he's a younger player. Obviously, they just saw him in the Super Bowl. He had 3 pressures against them. But he's also well-rounded enough to play good run defense. And I think he only had 2.5 sacks last year. But
Yep.
the numbers go deeper. And so the pressure numbers are encouraging, the age, the price point. Like, look, I would be all in on Jalen Phillips as I would at the trade deadline. But looking in that range, it's your Boye Mafe's, your Callahan Chasons. I just think he's a little bit more rounded than Chason.
Yeah, I actually also had Boye Mafe, a bigger edge rusher. Not going to win with speed as much as Callahan Chason, but a guy that, like you said, can set the edge decently. He has a fantastic inside move. That's one of the things that I noticed when watching the film. He can bull rush, not as effective, and then he can win around the edge a few times. I saw that in the film, but yeah, no, he's a very good player. You mentioned Odafe Owe. I didn't. He's a better player than Boye Mafe, I would say. But the price tag is going to be a little too extreme or a little out of the price range for the Patriots, in my opinion, and reading the reports that you and Doug put out. But yeah, he only played 49% of the snaps this year for the Seahawks, which was the second lowest of his career. So I feel like this is kind of a Milton Williams-esque situation where a guy that has obvious talent doesn't get to play because of the talent on his team. And then if he comes to New England, he'll obviously get a bigger role and he'll be able to kind of show off his talents more.
Yeah, I think that's a great comp, and you understand in that context, right? Like it's due to the talent that they had and the system that they had with Mike
Yeah.
McDonald, who wants to keep those rushers fresh. And we saw
hmm
this even in New England, right? Like Christian Barmore
Yeah.
and Milt Williams. Milt Williams didn't make a giant jump, and part of that was the injury. If you look at the total, snap count numbers for him,
hmm
but when he was playing at full strength, he was still like 65, 70%. So that's
hmm
a significant jump, but it's not so much that you go, are we really sure that he could do this? So with
Yeah.
Mafe too, he'd be in rotation. Ideally, if they are able to sign other guys at edge,
hmm
I think that would keep him fresh enough where you're not so worried about, the jump and playing time.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and yeah, you said the numbers go beyond the sacks. He had 41 pressures and a 13% pressure rate, which is really good for an edge rusher.
Mhm.
So even though the 2 sacks aren't really great, he had 9 sacks in 2023 and 6 in 2024. So he has been able to sack the quarterback and finish off some of those reps. So I don't really think it's that big of a worry for Boye Mafe. Moving on to tight end. Andrew, who do you have at tight end?
Yeah, this is unlike edge rusher, right? Where it's strong in the draft and strong in free agency. It's
Mhm,
really weak in both classes. And again, you start at the top. Kyle Pitts gets taken off the board. You go to
mhm,
Dallas Goddard. I think people around the league are expecting him to go back to Philly. So you're already kind of shopping, in the bargain bin or some of the mid-level guys. For someone who's a deeper dive, like Charlie Kolar is a big Y tight end with the Ravens, who I like for them. Will they sign him? We'll see what the number comes in at because you've also got a new regime in Baltimore, right? So it's harder to
Yeah.
project. The guy
mhm,
that I like most, but I'm also afraid that he might price him out, and I think is worth it anyway because they saw him last year. He's hard to take down. He's a good blocker. Is Cade Otton, and he's
mhm.
not a huge player where you look and go, you circle him the night before if you're the defensive coordinator, be like, well, we got to cover Cade Otton on third down. Like he was a red zone target for the Bucks. I just
Mhm.
like the fact that he is essentially a younger, better version of what Austin Hooper is, and you really need an upgrade there. Not to mention Hunter Henry's going to a contract year, so he might be in the range of like 9 to 11 if his agent's good, 12 million. And honestly, if you're the Patriots to cut a 2-year deal, to me that'd be worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. K Dalton, definitely a player to look at, a guy that, like you said, can block. And the Patriots need guys that can block from the tight end position. They had to have Thayer Munford out there for more than you would like, I would say. Um, he obviously had a good season, but I don't know. I think that they definitely need a guy that can block, and that's why I chose Charlie Kohler. You mentioned him
Mm.
earlier, a guy that can really, really block, and he's not going to provide the greatest numbers in the passing game. He only had 15 catches last year, but all of his plays were X plays, you could say. He was always wide open. Defenses forgot about him because, like I said, he isn't a guy that's going to be a high volume guy in receptions or receiving yards, but I think he could be your Thayer Munford replacement in a way. Really, really good run blocker, can chip. He struggles a little bit against like elite edge rushers, but like everyone does.
Yeah.
That's why they're elite. But then he had a really good rep against Jared Verse in run blocking that I really like. So grinded the Charlie Kohler film a few weeks ago, so I needed to shout him out.
Good on
And I
you,
know
man. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know a lot of guys like Brian Hines and Taylor Kyles, they love Charlie Kohler. And I watched the film and I was like, I see why they love him. So yeah, big Charlie Kohler fan. And then to round this out, safety. Who was your guy at safety?
Yeah, this is more towards the edge rushers where you could go. There are a lot of different names here, and I think based on what I heard about Jalen Hawkins' market, if their interest is real, and Elliot Wolf is volunteering his name in a way that he didn't for other players at his press conference at the
Hmm.
combine, I think Jalen will come back. I
Yeah.
still think you could invest in a third safety, but for the purpose of the exercise, let's say Jalen's gone.
Hmm.
Brian Cook is a name in Kansas City I like a lot, and he's
Yep.
a sure
Too.
tackler. He's got good range. He's played in a very multiple system. Like that stuff that Spags is running in Kansas City is not easy.
Hmm.
And so I think he is a player that's hitting the market at the right time because he's coming off of a terrific season. You worry about some of those guys because typically the only place they can go from a career year is to
Yeah.
regress and back down. But with
Hmm.
Cook, I just like the skill set, the scheme fit, where he is in his career. So again, there are a few names in there, and really a lot of guys aside from probably Jaquan Brisker that are all scheme fits. But he really checks most of the boxes if Jalen Hawkins doesn't come back.
Yeah. So we're really in lockstep here. I had Brian Cook as my
Nice.
safety here. But yeah, Jalen Hawkins, I think Jalen Hawkins maybe not as good of a player as Brian Cook, but I would like Jalen Hawkins back. Obviously has the connection with Craig Woodson here in the NFL, and then they both went to Cal as well. And I believe they played one season there together. Um,
Yeah, Craig was a freshman.
yeah, so they had one season, so I like that tandem. But if you need to add someone, Brian Cook, physical, big hitter. I think what do you have? 6 PBUs, which is fourth in the NFL per PFF, which is really good. And watching the film, you can tell he's a guy that likes to hit. Preparing for the Texans playoff game, looking at Kamari Lassiter, Henry Otorator, and then what's the linebacker's name that got suspended for the hit on Trevor Lawrence? I can't
Oh,
remember.
Aziz?
Yeah, Aziz Al Shahir. Those are guys that you can see like, wow, I'm scared for Drake May's life, the way that they hit. And Brian Cook has a little of that in him. Very similar, I think, to a Jalen Petrie. Not the fastest guy. He's gonna get beat over the top of a little bit, but a really, really good player.
Yeah, and there are a couple other names there, like depending on what they're looking for, because they want guys to cover. So Kobe Bryant out of Seattle comes to
Yep.
mind. Cam Curl out of LA, though,
Mhm.
would have loved to have seen. His name is escaping me now, but they brought him back. But anyway, guys who play also in kind of more of a split safety structure, and I think that'll help coming
Mhm.
forward. They'll do a little bit of everything, but you just go, hey, if it comes to it, we can play man, we can play zone, and it's an interchangeable role. This isn't box safeties. Like the era of the
Yeah.
Kyle Duggars, your Jabril Peppers, your Jaquan Briskers, like that's over.
Mhm. Yep, and Brian Cook played a lot of split safety in Kansas City, and he's I don't know the exact measurements on Jalen Hawkins and Craig Woodson, but 6'1", 206 for Brian Cook. That's I think similar to
Yeah,
those guys.
close enough.
So yeah, so yeah. All right. I've on your podcast you've said that you want to trade for Max Crosby. And I have one. I also would love to trade for Max Crosby. However, if it's gonna cost you two first, which you reported in your article as the Raiders' asking price, however, it's not really realistic, is what you said. And honestly, I think the league thinks, the rest of the league thinks. Um, but give me like a quick 60-second pitch on why Max Crosby.
Yeah, so look, I think that price will come down, and I actually didn't have that number, but you see it elsewhere from
Mhm.
reporters that you
Okay.
trust
Yeah.
nationally and locally. And so I started to pitch. assistant GMs and other executives when I was at the
Hmm.
combine. I say, look, I'm really into this Max Crosby thing. You gotta talk to me. He fits the culture as a guy who goes all out. He's perennially in the top five for tackles for loss. Your biggest position of need is edge. He's a premium player at that premium position, and the contract's palatable. Like $30 million for a position where you've got four guys over
Hmm.
40 for a guy in his prime, 27, 28, about to turn 29. Like he's right there. And so for a team that has the money to spend with Drake May, a rookie contract, has a guy who's under a reasonable number, and to come in day one and be a flag bearer for Mike Vrabel's culture, which is big and a reason that a lot of the guys they signed last year worked out so well. Not to mention his long-term health has usually been pretty good.
Hmm.
I love the fit. I love the money. I love the player. I love the production. And so the landing point in those conversations with an assistant GM and an executive was like, okay, what's it going to cost? And they both were like, you don't do it for two firsts. And I go, no, but how about this? A first, a fourth, which the Patriots have two this year. And if
Hmm.
you have to go for one of their four sixth-round picks, so be it. And or a young player like a Pop Douglas, who they like, but is going into a contract year, and I just don't think is a long-term fit here
Hmm.
within the McDaniel system, where he played 24% of the snaps. So you go, look, here are your options. You get the combo platter. Vegas, you pick three of the four, and we'll move on.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that trade package more than two first round picks, obviously.
Yeah.
Never a fan of trading future firsts. Um, but yeah, no, if you have to give up a Pop Douglas, a first round pick this year, which is basically a second round pick, and then a fourth round pick, which you mentioned they have two, that's a great package for an elite edge rusher, one of the best, maybe top five in the NFL. But the one thing I will say is, and I know you're not saying you would rather trade for Max Crosby than AJ Brown, or you at least didn't just say that. I'm not sure if you would. But the AJ Brown thing is that if you look at just the Super Bowl and Super Bowl alone, the Patriots didn't lose the Super Bowl, or the Patriots wouldn't have won the Super Bowl with Max Crosby. And obviously, you have 21 games to work with, or 20 other games to work with. But the thing is, like, you can generate pressure, you can get guys to have consistent pressure or scheme up pressure, but playmakers, the Patriots, I think one of the reasons that they lost Super Bowl is that they did not have playmakers. And would AJ Brown, if AJ Brown was here, would the Patriots have won the Super Bowl? Probably not. But I think having a guy like AJ Brown that can get open quick and a guy that is a really good receiver would be more valuable to this 2026 Patriots team than a Max Crosby. But Max Crosby would be a fantastic ad.
Yeah, I could really go either way. I mean, the way I
Hmm.
put it this offseason is they need to be win now, but they don't
Hmm.
have to be all in. So I
Hmm.
look at this as you take one big swing, whether it's AJ or Max. And frankly, like I would probably go down to price. If AJ Brown gets the DK Metcalf package back for the Eagles, so you get a second, maybe a seventh, or you bump it up to
Hmm.
a sixth, a fourth, whatever. That's better than what you'd have to give up for Max Crosby. Go get AJ Brown. The other piece about this, though, is where he would fit within the depth chart, right? Like you talked about the Super Bowl. Will Campbell obviously had a horrible day, that
Yep.
worst day as an NFL player.
Hmm.
He should improve, as should
Yep.
Jared Wilson, as should a Kyle Williams. So you've got this rise in talent. Oh, not to mention the quarterback who's almost the MVP now going into year three. I
Yep.
trust that kind of growth. How much growth do you get? Obviously, is a big factor here. But on the defensive side, like let's say Chase on walks, Harold Landry will heal, but he's not getting any younger. Elijah
Hmm.
Ponder flashed. Anthony Jennings was
Yep.
better, but the bar was so low. You need to be able to get consistent heat, and it's great that they unleashed all of those blitzes, and they were over 50% in the Super Bowl. I
Right.
just would not want to live in that world where, hey, if this busts, we're screwed because it's an X play or a touchdown over the top. And so they
Mhm.
need both. It's just to me a matter of price between two great players.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there. The one thing, though, to push back is that this is such a great edge rusher class, and this is such a good edge rusher free agency. So you can get edge rushers other places, but for wide receiver, you're not going to draft a wide receiver one at 31 unless maybe Casey Concepcion falls or Denzel Boston falls, which he's probably not. Maybe Omar Cooper Jr. is a wide receiver one. We'll see. He seems like more of a slot guy, but I don't know. I think it's harder to get wide receiver ones than like great edge rushers. Maybe not great edge rushers, but good production off the edge. And I think it's more valuable for a wide receiver one. But all your points are obviously extremely valid.
Yeah, then there's the health thing, right? His
Mhm.
knee has been an
Yeah,
issue, and
and
some of
that's
the
why I got traded
production,
from Tennessee.
exactly. Well, not exactly. They kind of had I mean, it
A
was
falling out. Yeah.
they were aware of it, but like
Mhm.
we all saw what he's done in Philly since then, right? Like he
Right.
looks like a
Mhm.
healthy enough guy. It's just a matter of okay, he's 28, and I know Max Crosby's in the same range, but who's going to lose? Their physical ability and who's going to be impacted by that more. If he's a run after the catch guy and a separator, like that is the player that I don't know if I
Yeah.
trust to age as well as someone who could rely a little bit more on power and craft in terms of Max Crosby. But again, like what's the price? What am I giving up? That's what I like. These are two huge needs at premium positions. They're not going to sell both. They're not going to trade for both players and give up, like you said, multiple first round picks.
Hmm.
So my thing is just do one because there are cautions with both, but I think it's worth it.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. And staying on guys that might not age well, Tyreek Hill. There was a report today about Tyreek Hill coming to New England. I want to ask first, have you heard anything about that?
No, I didn't even see that
Okay.
on Twitter today. I wasn't on Twitter too much,
Mhm.
but we had like I said, tons of conversations to come out. His name never came up once.
Okay. So I'm just going to throw that out then because it wasn't the most reliable source, so to speak. So we're just going to throw that out. Never mind. But
Uh,
yeah,
And I'm
no.
not ruling it out. Like this
No,
isn't,
no, for sure. I
no
just
one
wanted
says
to.
it's never going to happen, but just like for
Mhm.
me, it's not on my radar. I don't know how much it's on
Yeah.
theirs.
Hmm.
Someone might know better than me. It happens all the time. But like I just, especially with the off-field stuff and the way that he's
Right.
decelerated. Like you talk about players and how they age, and AJ Brown might be more of a question than Max Crosby. Tyreek Hill is not going to age particularly well, and you could kind of see it at the end in
100% agree.
Miami. So he's someone
Yeah.
I would stay away from if he was walking on the street. But
Mhm.
also given that contract and how he's going to age, probably on the football field too, and in the front office.
Yeah, 100%. I have run a Patriots Instagram account. I wrote a essay to not an essay, but just like a little paragraph about why I would stay away from him. Relies on speed. He just had a gruesome leg injury. How is his speed going to be? And off the field, Mike Vrabel. I think it's not weird that he says this, but like I've never heard someone say, "I want to make great decisions." I don't know. That's just kind of a thing that I noticed about Mike Vrabel, but that's a side note. Anyways, but he says that he wants players to make great decisions off the field, on and off the field, and Tyreek Hill certainly does not do that. All right, so one last question before we get into the 4 minute drill. In your most recent article, you talked about the plane, the Patriots plane. It was obviously graded an F minus. People have talked about how it has ashtrays on it. Fred Kirsch said that that's not true, but I don't know. Someone said it's borderline unsafe. A player. Do you think that was an over exaggeration, or do you think that the plane is actually life threatening?
I don't think it's life threatening, but the conversations that Doug and I had
Hmm.
confirmed what was said in there. We're like, when you're on a plane and you've got a bit of a rickety landing,
Hmm.
even if you're like, the facts of it's safer to fly than it is to drive around your neighborhood, the more likely crash is going to happen even in your neighborhood. You still don't feel great when you're in this giant
Yeah.
metal tube that's kind of shaking or wobbling or hitting and then
Hmm.
hitting the ground again.
Hmm.
So it's an older plane. There's no Wi-Fi. There might not be
Oh.
ashtrays. You've got issues with I don't want to say like landings, but you have more difficulties, I would say, sometimes with some basic functions than others, and it'll get them to and from. But like the stuff that the players are saying, this isn't just a performative, oh, we want to get a better plane, let's complain about the plane. Like this is from people who are just let's call them staffers within the
Hmm.
team, not playing on Sundays,
Okay.
but very much part of the team going, "Eh, we just need a new one. Like it's all
Mhm.
real there in the report card.
Okay. And then would you say that there is any effort to get a new plane from what you know?
Not that not what I've heard.
Okay.
And look, again, that could change, but
Hmm.
no, I mean, this is, and I think the proof is right. How many years has this been now complained about? Like it's been an F minus for
A
2 years,
while.
or an F for two
Yeah.
years, and the year before, I don't remember what the plane was specifically, but travel was bottom 10 for them.
Hmm.
Kraft seemed more motivated to take care of other things, which are more important. The weight room for one, trainer's room, and they've got the new
Hmm.
facility coming up. But I mean, I just hope. Look, I get annoyed when there's no Wi-Fi on my plane. I can only
Yeah.
imagine
Hmm.
NFL players feeling when they can't connect and they're flying for work.
Yeah. No. So little plane talk there. Just thought that was interesting when I was reading. Um, so yeah. All right. Let's get into the 4 minute drill. I'll start the timer. You obviously do this with Patriots players, so I thought why not do it with yourself. So
Sure.
let's start the timer. I got a bunch of. I don't have like football questions necessarily, but I have like
Okay.
journalism questions, and then I have like non-football journalism related questions. But let's start the timer. All right. So my first question is: what is one wild locker room experience that you have had? Phil Perry talks about Brandon Browner kind of intimidating him. What's something that happened to you over your time?
So we had this wasn't directly to me. I'd have to have a couple more thoughts on that. Um, but there was a player a couple years ago at the trade deadline who his name was rumored,
Hmm.
and this player was talking to a reporter who was going around asking all of the involved guys standard stuff. If your name is out there, we go confirm. What do you feel? What do you think? You can talk, you can do nothing. Well, this reporter on the beat is beloved, and this player reacted in such a way that the rest of us who were like emotionally, professionally, you still cover him as he was like, screw that guy. Because he was, I'm not talking to you, I'm not talking to the feds, get out of here, get the F out of here, and walked into the showers.
Wow.
And that was enough for the rest of us who, again, this is a long-term reporter, like been around well before I was on the beat, and just disrespectful. But it was a testament both to the player, who's cantankerous at best, and then the reporter, who everybody loves. And I could say that I would say most of the fan base as well.
Wow. Okay. Um, you've mentioned that you are a big Red Sox fan on in previous interviews and stuff like that. Has anyone ever confused you for Garrett Crochet?
No, no, and I hope not, man. Like I got some weight to lose this offseason. Hopefully we get there. He's a very handsome man, I will say that though, but no, no, not yet.
Okay. Um, what is your favorite and least favorite part of being a journalist?
Favorite part, I know people would expect kind of like going to games on Sundays, and like, look, that is one of the biggest perks. But I often find that it's the people that you get to talk to and the things you get to learn about that otherwise you wouldn't. Like, I
Hmm.
found out there's this national database of all of these airplane crashes and incidents where we were trying to do some research on the Patriots plane for things that may or may not have happened with them. I didn't know that existed. So you're seeing all of these different things, and like, I didn't love to see airport crashes, but the point is, like, not a lot of jobs you can wake up every morning and go, I don't know where today is going to go, but mine is one of them, and I love that
Hmm.
part of it.
What has it meant to work with Doug Kyde? And have you heard about his sweatshirt color gate?
I've not heard about the sweatshirt color gate. Love Doug. I I'm so lucky to work with him, and not just because like we were friends to begin with, and
Hmm.
we're similar ages and this and that, but we work so well together that I really feel when we put out pieces like we did from the combine, it's really hard to beat us, and sometimes frankly I think we do the best job in the beat. But you don't get to say that unless you have a teammate like him, in
Hmm.
addition to a reporter and a hard worker. So like Doug's my guy.
Yeah. Um, rank these four things in terms of how fun they are to cover them. So we got training camp, we got being on Radio Row, Combine Week, and then the start of the legal tampering period.
Oh man. I'll go with this number. This is going ascending. So number 4 is the start of the legal tampering period because you're just at home.
Hmm.
Number 3 for me is Radio Row, which is cool, but it's really like eating junk food all the time. In the first couple days, you're like, this is great, and then day 4 or 5, you're like, I do not care about the celebrities walking around. This is fun to start. Uh, Number 2 is the combine, which has got some junk food elements to it, but
Hmm.
also a lot of steak, and you're getting to like meet new people around the league the
Yep.
whole time. And then number 1 for me is training camp, just because we had waited for so long, right? And it's pure
Hmm.
football. And I look at this as, every day competition. What can I notice? What can I write? What can I pick up on that other people aren't, and do as much as I can in those recap articles, and then see what I miss with other people around the beat. So it's all football all the time, and that's what makes it the best for me.
Okay, I like that. Love training camp as well. And then final question: what was your favorite part and then least favorite part about being in San Francisco for the Super Bowl?
My favorite part was getting to tell really all the stories that I had wanted to, and some of them were more ambitious than others, and a couple
Hmm.
dropped into my lap late, and it could range from, a coach overcoming PTSD and alcoholism
Oh
to
yeah.
Drake May has this orange juice machine that he paid reportedly or supposedly $10,000 for, or some large amount that all the players absolutely freaking love and think
Hmm.
has healing powers. And then the least favorite part was it's really just a logistics thing because we were
Hmm.
staying in San Francisco where they had
Yeah.
all reserved hotels for the media, and that's where Radio Row was. But
Hmm.
all of the teams and of course the game was in Santa Clara. So you're
Hmm.
just on a bus a lot, and that's an hour trip without traffic. So when we did hit traffic, you were just like, I'd love to get back to do work or be here or be at Radio Row or talk to the guys. So that was just kind of a drag in the middle. But like, man, you're at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is like, what's your least favorite part of a box of chocolates? Like
Right.
anything in there is going to be good. So that's
Mhm.
that's how I looked at it.
Yep. All right. Thank you for that. Yeah. So the orange juice machine. Just want to hit on that.
Yeah.
I heard about that, and I was like, told my dad, I was like, you Drake May credits his orange juice machine or juice machine for his success. Can we get the juice machine? And he said, absolutely not. So, no orange juice machine for me. But yeah, those are some great articles. Mike Smith, obviously, being the guy that you mentioned earlier. But yeah, so before we wrap this one up, I want to get a few thoughts from you about the draft. I know this is a free agency podcast, but the draft is obviously also coming up. So who do you like at 31, and what positions do you like at 31?
Yeah, this is tough because a lot of my time post Super Bowl, right? That was February 8th, was spent
Hmm.
then, like you rest and recover for a few days and then getting into
Yep.
free agency. And so when I was at the combine, I'd never known less about a draft, frankly, which isn't to say nothing. Like there are a couple players I like. It's just a matter of do I like them more than all the other players I haven't studied?
Hmm.
The ones off the top that I do like are Zion Young, the edge from Missouri, who I think is
Yep.
just like cut from the Vrabel cloth, and he's hard charging and he's physical and he's well balanced both in terms of the run defense and his pass rush. And then you could get in the Concepciones and the Denzel Bostons, and it's just been so long. I mean, basically since the N'Keal Harry pick, and we know how that went. Since they took a receiver that high, and since then we've had Jalen
Yep.
Polk. So I just really look at this as go. I would love a Zion Young, an edge. And like the Miami guys are fun, but they'll be gone before the Patriots get to them. And then the
Mhm.
tight end position. Like, give me a day two tight end where
Yep.
that'll take a year, a tradesy guy. His name escapes me, the kid from Stanford, I think they like. And then Ohio State has a big kid who I
Max
just
Clare.
think, yes. And you bet on those traits and you say you'll develop as a rookie. When you come in year two, you'll be ready to go. And that's what you have to do because you just don't have those guys playing tight end in the NFL or in college the way they will in the NFL.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
just, you bet on the physical parts, and those are the two that stuck out to me for the size and kind of athleticism that you look for. As much as Kenyon Sadiq would be a ton of fun, like don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I think these are just the more likely players for
Hmm.
them.
Hmm. Yeah. So edge, a big need, tight end you mentioned. But I want to talk about my favorite player in the draft at 31, and he's not a consensus first round pick, so he's kind of in the middle, which is he would be a good pick for the Patriots last year, I guess, with their, if you know what I mean, with like the pick that they had early second round. But that player is Clemson's right tackle, Blake Miller.
Mm,
This is a guy who seems like a Vrabel guy. I don't really watch like interviews for the draft, or not like, but like interviews from their season. And I watched Blake Miller's interviews. He's a great, um, seems like a great leader. I even watched him mic'd up in practice. So great leader. He's a great player as well. I've heard people compare him to Will Campbell with long arms.
hmm.
So, yeah, any thoughts on him, or if you've gotten
I
into
mean,
him?
I know the name. I can tell you the
Hmm.
measurables, but that's about it. So,
Yeah,
look, it sounds like you just gave me a little bit more homework because I like the pitch so far, and it sounds like you're on the right track.
yeah, great run blocker. Yeah, he ran a guy. I don't remember who they were playing, but he took a guy and dragged him like 10 yards sideways and threw him into the ground. And it was one of the greatest run blocking reps I've ever seen. But yeah, so big fan of Blake Miller. I don't know if the Patriots are going to want to take a right tackle in the first round. And Alex Barth has said it a few times, but a guy that won't start for you week one, how is that going to like go over with the fans as your first round pick? But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the draft stuff. And I want to get one last question before we wrap this one up. So the Gerard Mayo piece, obviously, I did a Gerard Mayo podcast with my buddy PRZ. I don't know, on Patriot Red Zone on Instagram, but we talked about the Gerard Mayo and we referenced your article a bunch. But what went into that article, and what was your favorite part of the article? Obviously, it wasn't a great, like, it was a great article, but it wasn't like a happy article, if you know what I mean. But what was your favorite part of that?
I don't know if I had a favorite part, which always sounds like a cop out, but I mean,
Mhm.
people come at this angle at articles like that from two different angles. One is, they understand what we do, how we talk to people, the information gathering piece, the verifying the information you hear, because stuff is flying around all the time, and then you write what you have to explain and answer questions that people have, and sometimes even before they ask them. And then there's the other people who are like, you're making all this up. It doesn't work. Why don't you tell us now? And some of it is like guys just weren't comfortable until the season was
Mhm.
over. So I was happy with the piece in that everything that's in there is like as ironclad as possible. And that's, true for pretty much every single piece. But this was a case of Doug and I had worked together longer. Instead of verifying it with two or three people, you can get four or five or six and sometimes.
Mhm.
But it was just really like they're 4-13 and this was bad and you never have coaches fired after 1 year. You rarely do. What
Mhm.
happened? What was behind the scenes? So again, that was really the question that we tried to answer as we did the year before with Belichick. And then I did with Karen Guregian with the Patriots are 8-9 and everyone saw the offense, but you're like, how
Yep.
could this possibly happen? And that's
Mhm.
really all that it is. We want to answer the questions that we have and that
Mhm.
people have on the outside. So whatever the answers are that we dig up is out of our control, but at least we kind of call the right people who do have the answers and see what they can tell us and what we can do to verify that information so we can put it all together.
Yeah, and as a Patriots fan, um, it was great this year that you guys did not have to write one of those
Yeah,
just
we
because.
agree.
Yeah, just you wrote, like you mentioned, the 8 and 9, the Matt Patricia thing kind of exposed a lot of stuff there. The 2023 one, and I don't remember exactly. I think there was something in there about the not Kraft not wanting to hire, or Kraft wanting to hire an offensive coordinator, and Belichick maybe pushing back against that. Could be wrong on that, but I think that was mentioned in there. And then obviously the one last year. So obviously, or always great work, and thank you for joining the show. Yeah.
You got it, man. Keep pressing. I will keep an eye on Blake Biller for you. And if they do pick him, you better start your stuff all over socials, all right?
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it.